7 years ago, Chinese real estate developer Country Garden started construction on Malaysia's $100 billion forest city. Expected to be fully completed by 2035, the city will be a smart, green futuristic city that combines sustainability and cutting-edge technology to create the ideal place for living and working. Not only that, but the city enjoys a very strategic location, since it's just 2 kilometers away from the global commercial hub of Singapore. However, the city has faced multiple problems and has even been called a ghost city, with just 10,000 people living in it compared to its initial goal of 700,000. But what really killed enthusiasm for this forest city was the default of its main developer, Country Garden. Now Forest City has turned from Country Garden's overseas wonder into a target of the company's international creditors. Find out what happens when a mega project fails, and if there's any chance for Forest City to turn things around. Hello viewers and welcome back to PST Asia. In Johor, a Malaysian state in the south of the Malay Peninsula, visitors can see a number of towering skyscrapers built to house 700,000 people in a luxurious city overlooking the sea. Standing just a few miles away from the global commercial hub of Singapore, Forest City is a vision from the future. But it's nearly a decade into the $100 billion mega project, and there are few signs of life. The project is still far from its population goal of 700,000 people, and so far it has only attracted 10,000. This unfinished mega project is Country Garden's most valuable and expensive project outside of China, and was supposed to be the developer's overseas masterpiece. But fate had other plans. In October of 2023, Country Garden defaulted on its massive debts as a result of the real estate crisis that began with Evergrande's default in 2021. Now, Forest City has caught the attention of Country Garden's international creditors, who think it could help recover around $1.5 billion. But the cracks in Forest City go much farther back than Country Garden's default. One glaring issue is the lack of people, something Country Garden objected to, saying that more than 80% of residential units have been sold. But most of these units were likely bought as investments with no one living in them, not to mention hundreds of residential units are listed for resale and rent on Malaysia's local property websites. These sites clearly show that the units' values have been constantly declining over the years. For example, a one-bedroom apartment that once sold for $280 per square foot now goes for about $116. Since the city is far from a lively hub, its commercial street is not much of a business center, boasting just a few shops, restaurants, and a karaoke bar. Even the white sand beaches that call temptingly to the city's residents are off-limits due to a heavy infestation of crocodiles. So when did everything start going wrong for Forest City? City planners would probably tell you that to make an attractive city, you need to have the people there to create the right atmosphere. After all, who wants to live in a city that has no nightlife or opportunity to go out with friends and family? But when marketing their properties, Forest City chose wealthy Chinese people as their target audience, which was probably reflective of their pricing for the units. However, these people were mainly interested in buying an investment property or a second home that offered a cheaper alternative to homes in Singapore. China's housing market has already been impacted by people's preference for investing in tangible property rather than the stock market. In China, this has created countless empty residential units, and Forest City seems to have suffered the same fate. Besides this initial mistake, Forest City was hit again when initially high sales plummeted after China imposed strict capital controls limiting overseas payments in 2016. Since this was a Malaysian project targeting Chinese audiences, the new regulation was a catastrophe for the project. Troubles also mounted when a new Malaysian government took over in 2018. This government was extremely critical of the project's focus on Chinese buyers, which raised alarm bells for Chinese investors who were wary of restrictions on ownership and long-term visas. As you can imagine, this also hurt sales. As if things couldn't get worse for Forest City, a slowdown in both China and Malaysia's real estate markets came with the pandemic, hurting the mega project's prospects even more. By the end of it, Country Garden ended up with 26,000 residential units that housed about 10,000 people. Most of the city's activity is actually thanks to its foreign workers, either from Nepal or Bangladesh, who maintain the city's bushes, sweeping its roads or guarding its towers. By this point, it almost seems as if Forest City is cursed, and to see it today, it would certainly seem that way. The real estate developer revealed that it aims to have its offshore debt restructuring plan by the end of this year, and until then, with $196 billion in debt, and a 60% stake in Forest City, Country Garden is strapped for cash and unable to complete the mega project. Before Country Garden's default, the company behind Forest City stated that the project is proceeding as planned and that it is always prepared to review and to reevaluate Forest City's development plans after a review date in 2025. Based on this limited information, it looks like Forest City's future will be shrouded in uncertainty until its review in 2025. The empty Forest City project is a prime example of everything wrong with China's once booming real estate market: very high borrowing accompanied with overbuilding and speculation. Country Garden's business model consisted of building mega projects on cheap lands that had high potential, then reaping the benefits when the potential of those places was realized. However, its attempt to replicate that model outside of China completely failed and resulted in a $100 billion Malaysian ghost city that is too expensive for the locals and too dull for buyers to live in. Back in China, the government is still dealing with its real estate crisis. The government has offered 1 trillion yuan, or roughly $137 billion, to help complete unfinished real estate projects and deliver them to their buyers, hoping to support the declining real estate market and companies like Country Garden. On top of this, the Chinese government has also introduced measures to support the real estate market, like relaxing home purchase restrictions and lowering borrowing costs. But so far, these have failed to create a meaningful recovery in major cities' property sectors. The outlook for the Chinese real estate market doesn't show a quick recovery anytime soon, and until it does, it's not likely that Chinese property development companies will attempt mega-city projects like Forest City. This means we probably won't see another Forest City project for some time. While Forest City started out as an ambitious project meant to create a futuristic green city with all the amenities people could want, in reality it became a ghost city and a warning to future mega-city developers. Despite that, Country Garden isn't ready to throw in the towel just yet. It told the BBC in early December that the company was optimistic about the project completing, and insisted that Forest City is going as planned despite its developer facing nearly $200 billion of debt. It also talked about the plans to include Forest City in a new special economic zone between Malaysia and neighboring Singapore that showed the project was safe and stable. Country Garden also denied the severity of the current situation in China's real estate market, calling it just noise and insisting that the Malaysian city runs its business as usual. While Country Garden may be determined to act as if everything is fine, the reality is far from that. Country Garden was recently forced to abandon 2 projects in Australia, selling off an unfinished development in Melbourne and another in Sydney in order to have some cash for its debt problems. Without access to enough cash, it is hard to imagine how mega projects such as Forest City can be finished or how it will attract people to live there anytime soon. At the moment, Chinese-built property is a tough sell, to put it mildly. For now, we'll have to wait and see how the Forest City story unfolds. Country Garden will need to work through its debt restructuring plans and its many court hearings, so despite the cavalier attitude it presents to the public, the situation is far from fine. One sliver of hope for the real estate market are the CCP stimulus packages, but is that enough to turn things around for developers' ambitious mega projects? Probably not. Well, that's all for today's video. Let us know what you thought of the topic and what you think should happen to Forest City. Thanks for watching all the way till the end, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. I'll see you in the next one.